Howdy guys, welcome back to the channel. Maverick here, and right now we're going to be watching episode 18 of Fairy Gone. So, where we last left off from last episode, oh that's a tongue twister, we were in the midst of a systematic removal of the Gui Carlen Mafia group, right? The current government of the Empire finally decided to get off its ass and do some things about these huge Mafia groups that are controlling illegal ferries. Of course, mostly courtesy of information gained from Sweetie, but still, they finally decided to do something with it, right? And of course, at the very end there, we had the scene where our main protagonist, Free and Maria, were escorting Damien, the descendant of one of the authors of the fairy tombs, somewhere else, right? So I expect in this episode, or the upcoming few episodes, we're going to be removing the rest of the Gui Carlin forces, and the current government will get into control of the various Black Fairy tomes that Gui Carlin actually controls, right? And that's probably also going to progress the story forwards, and we'll learn more and more about what exactly is hidden within these Black Fairy tomes. Is that true or not? Let's just get into the episode to find out. Alright, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Ugh. And every time it starts getting into winter, my nose starts acting up. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love winter, but still. All part of Gui Carlin, right? Right. They got the rest of the Black Fairy tombs. Really? You never expected it? Hmm. Or is it actually him? Hmm. Well, maybe it's not. Well, let me skip this real quick. I'll see you guys in a second. And back. Dancing mouse and broken. If anything else, I always do really like the titles for these episodes. Transplant, creating a new... Yeah, creating a new fairy soldier. They're gonna get discovered sooner or later because of that. Ooh. How come she's the only one that gets a ride? All the rest need to go by themselves. I mean, ride by themselves. Not that I think either of them are complaining, I'm just saying though. Marco Bill. I think Marco Bellet was the one besides EJ, right? There's so many people coming and going. It's kind of hard to track to everyone. Seriously, like all of the descendants of the original Fairy Tomb scholars. A familial thing? Oh, or is Marco Bello this guy? Oh yeah, I think he might be this guy, actually. Huh. And they're still focusing on their story. I thought she was going to be pretty much forgotten after she gave her information out. That was... Oh, but I do like this duo, actually. Wish we could see more of them, and, you know, what they're actually trying to accomplish. Particularly sweet, Bittersweet. Sweetie. That makes sense. But still, though, even in the end, these are only mafia, right? You're telling me that the Empire doesn't actually have an army that it can just use to, you know, take over some errant rebels? It's not like they're that heavily armed. Right, the Minister of Fairies is actually all still practicing that religion, right? Oh. Yeah, Marco Bello is the guy behind. He's the vice minister of fairies, I believe. Corpses. So they do have an army, about 50 or so fairy soldiers. Lots of... Yeah, it's a graveyard. Ugh. Yeah, they're right. The smell there must be completely overwhelming. Now that I think about it, having 50 or so fairy soldiers actually is quite a formidable force. But then again, they had no way of knowing that in the beginning, right? Oh. Oh, fighting in these long corridors? Multiple? Oh, so these are the cultivated fairy soldiers? Or is that those just his fairy? So there aren't actually other fairy soldiers? It's just these guys? Ah, okay, I see, I see. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Good thinking on her part. But seriously, with all them trying to cultivate it, and the best they could do are these rats? You wanna, like, call your fairy out, 3? Ooh. We're actually seeing some actual fairy abilities. Mano a mano. Like, I'm enough for small fry like you. So now they're both have fairy weapons. Oh man, this music in the background is a little bit loud. Actually, let me mute this for now because I don't want to get copyright struck by the background music. So now it's like a battle of conviction and of beliefs. Okay. I guess this is what 3 needs to do, you know, actually confirm his own beliefs and whatnot before he faces, Wolfram again. Just like, like, seriously. Just. Oh man, I have no words. Oh. What? Alright. Oh my god. Ugh. Oh. Ooh, retrieving the fairy weapon. Is this what, Veronica? Yep. And she just happens to be there. Oh, all right. There looks to be a little bit more after the ending song, so let's skip ahead to that part. All right, so there's about 1 minute left after the ending. Let's watch this together in 3, 2, 1, play. That's the 9th fairy tome. I mean, book 9. Not the black 9. Yeah, the black 9. Is it going to be intercepted on the way back to HQ? Sweetie is still there, right? Wait, who? That? Wolfram? Ooh. Huh. Interesting. Alright, see you guys after this. Alrighty, everybody's coming to the party right now, right? And I guess they're trying to make it all eventually get interconnected with each other. We are reaching the end of the series after all, so that would kind of make sense. And let's go through each of the different factions real quick, right, to get a hold of what we're actually dealing with right now. So first of all, one thing that I did kind of mess up within the episode itself is I really forgot who exactly Marco Bellwood and Griff Mercier was. So I thought that Marco was actually the one, the vice minister of the Minister of Fairies. But, it's the minister, that's Marco Bellwood. And then the vice minister is Griff Mercier, who are apparently, Damien is trying to hide from them. He doesn't want them to know his existence. And we learn from, we can see from this episode that they both are part of this sort of religious cult called Ian, right? Anne, or whatever it's called. And so, obviously they're having some ulterior motives, right? Even though they're working for the current government, I think that they just worked their way up to this position, and in reality, they're trying to gain the control of these fairy tomes for their own uses, right? And I don't. Probably it's not exactly personal use, but it's something that they believe in, right? It's part of their belief system or whatnot. They're trying to, I don't know, maybe summon the original fairy or something, and bring in, a new era or something like that, so fairies can rise up again, something of that sort. Don't really know, but that's what I'm going for as of right now. And they're probably also the ones who, well, actually, hold that thought. Even though they do have this kind of ulterior motive, I don't think Marco and Griff are actually completely working on the same page, right? I actually believe that Griff is another traitor within the Minister of Fairies. And he was the one who leaked the information to all the various other parties, right? So it's, like I said, it's very complicated and convoluted. There's lots of different agendas for each different party, and even if they are in the same faction, they could have differing opinions, or in this case, it might be a traitor, right? So even though Marco himself is the minister of the Ministry of Fairies, he's not exactly working as the wishes of unified Zesia of the government, and yet his own subordinate, his right-hand man, Griff, I don't think is completely on board with him as well, and might be also having some of his own ulterior motives, right? And then we see Veronica here also come to the party, and, her thing is fairly easy to know. She's stealing the fairy weapon so that she has a better fighting chance against Ray Dawn. That one is pretty cut clear and whatnot, so just no, we can put her aside. Sweetie, still not really sure what she's trying to do. You know, she's explained before that these fairy tombs have some relation with her father, and that's what she's trying to find out. But still, though, what can she actually accomplish, right? More than half of the fairy tombs are being held in control by the Ministry of Fairies. What can her getting one single fairy tomb actually do? So that's something that I'm really not quite sure about, and why she is part of this entire story at all. Again, I really do like her character, right? And I do like her interaction with the other girl and whatnot, and she's a interesting character to me. But you know, it would be great if they could maybe explain a little bit more on what she's actually trying to achieve here, beyond just stealing fairy tombs, right? Wolfran, not really sure what he's doing here, and once again, so, you know, what can taking one of the Black Fairy Tomes accomplish, right? Most of them are still under the Ministry of Fairies' control. So what's he doing? You know, showing his face up here and then, you know, sniping away this fairy tomb. And honestly, I thought it was fairly obvious that this fairy tomb was going to be stolen away yet again. You know, it has to go through this entire transportation process all the way back to headquarters. And that's when it's most vulnerable, right? Because you can't send the entire force along with it. Anytime when you're splitting up forces, that's a ripe chance for someone to come in and intercept. If you really wanted to intercept it, though, why did he have to do it, like, right near the scene of action, right? He could have obviously, or a much smarter way would be to ambush it halfway when it's far away from any other fairy forces, and so they can just simply get it and then smash and run, right? And nobody would be the wiser as to who actually did it. So, unless they're showing their faces for a reason here, right? And you would hope that this makes logical sense, right? Them deliberately showing themselves here in front of all these other fairy soldiers, which potentially there is a case for this, because they use the fairy of their fallen comrade Oz, right? So they're definitely taunting or showing them in a certain way that this is possible. Perhaps that's what they're trying to do, and that's their real motive, not just to try and intercept the fairy tomb. And of course, there could be another reason why they're trying to snipe this, and that is they're trying to stop the completion of the Ministry of Fairy gathering all the fairy tombs, and particularly the Black Fairy Tomb, right? So that's also a possibility, especially since we know that Wolfram is sort of semi-working with Ray Dawn, so they also have another agenda, you know, different from all the other parties as well. Although, are they actually completely working with Ray Dawn, or are they actually still, you know, having each their own agendas as well? That remains to be seen, right? It is very complicated here, with everybody having their own sort of thing, and what they're trying to accomplish. And really, it's a mess, right? And I do sincerely hope that the author will find a way to, you know, smooth out all the mess at the very end to give us a satisfying conclusion. Okay, so beyond that kind of recap of where we're standing at with the various different factions, the biggest thing I want to talk about for this episode in particular is the fight between Free and EJ, right? So, you know, battle of convictions happen a lot in shonen anime. It's a common trope, right? You know, I have something that I believe in, you know, especially most of the time it's the antagonist that's this egotistic mania who believes that he knows what's right, and then the protagonist wants, you know, he's trying to prove himself. He's trying to prove that his own convictions, his own beliefs are what's going to trump over the other side at the very end here, right? Now, however, I feel like in this particular episode, in that particular fight, it reached nowhere near the level of emotions that was required to pull off this kind of scene, right? They didn't really duke out their battle of convictions in an adequate way for it to be a really satisfying conclusion to their battle. And don't get me started on that final blow, right? Like, that was completely laughable. You know, you're fighting, it's not like EJ was surprised by anything, or it's not like Free actually pulled out any spectacular move. He simply, you know, right, I'm going to defeat you, and then made this huge big leap forward, which, you know, really opened himself to counterattack like everywhere. That's like one of the big no-nos in actual combat, right? And for some reason EJ just froze up and then just let himself be cut. Like, what the hell even was that? Now, think of it. If they were really trying to, especially in this case where Free is trying to as far as I can get, his conviction is that he's now fighting for on behalf of his comrades, right? They're a close knit unit and whatnot, and so that's what his current belief is in and what he's currently fighting for. So, how we can clearly see that Maria is there already, right? So it would have made much more logical sense if either Maria or some of his other comrades helped to maybe make a distraction or something so that EJ was not paying attention, and that gave an opening for Free to deliver this killing blow, right? Something like that. And of course they can do the whole saving afterwards and whatnot, but that would make much more logical sense. And not just in terms of the actual battle, but also in terms of the thematic concept where Free is trying to say that his conviction is stronger and he really believes in his comrades and whatnot, right? Wouldn't that really help drive that point home? I don't know. I feel like that was kind of a missed opportunity. And if we're going for some other kind of route, right? So, the reason why I'm really not that pleased with this scene is because we see EJ being this very strong character, and to suddenly just freeze up like that and let himself be cut by Free doesn't really suit what we've seen him throughout the past 2 episodes, right? Now, then again, I've had this long I've also held this belief since EJ was first introduced that there's no way he could be this strong, right? He shouldn't be, especially compared with Free. Free is someone who actually fought in the Great Unification War, and he has lots of battle experience, actual battlefield experience and whatnot. So why can someone like EJ, who really comes out of nowhere and he's working with the Mafia, be on that kind of power level, right? It's sort of OP, and it's sort of like activating cheats, right? That's not really supposed to happen. So it could also be a possibility that EJ really wasn't as strong as we thought before, right? And Free should clearly be stronger than him, especially since he's got the fairy weapon, which sort of takes away one of the advantages that EJ could have had, and so that's why just relying on their pure experience and prowess alone, Free is always going to have the upper hand here, right? So, that would make sense. That would make sense. But even if so, I feel like there was an opportunity here for some kind of epic speech that not only allows Free to once again state his conviction, but also provide a satisfying sort of answer to this entire situation, right? Especially here when we see EJ talking about how he wants to bring back this sort of free-for-all kind of society where people just fight and win over each other through their brute power and with their fairy power and whatnot. He has this sort of idealistic and egotistic view of himself, right? On the other hand, we have Free here, who's actually done this, right? He's actually proven himself on the battlefield. He's fought alongside fairies, against other people as well. Day in, day out, it's life and death. It's life and death for them, and so that would have been the perfect opportunity for him to, really, turn this entire situation on its head, and then, question EJ instead, question EJ's convictions, like saying, you're talking about war and conflict and whatnot, but I was the one who actually lived through it, and you're nothing more than just someone who's playing at war, right? Something like, a kind of speech of that kind of nature, and then powering up and then defeating him, right? I just feel like that, either way that you want to go for, it would make much more sense, and also have a much more satisfying conclusion to their actual battle here, and really drive home this sort of battle of conviction and make a logical conclusion to the end of the battle. And really, for me anyways, it would have gave me much more reason to root together with Free and whatnot, and really get excited when he comes through in the end and defeats EJ, right? So I don't know. It's just a lot of missed opportunities here, and really, cliche is cliche, right? But still, I feel like even going these kinds of cliche routes would be much better than going through this, WTF kind of ending here, right? Or maybe that's just me, but honestly, I feel like there's a ton of different ways that they could have made this scene better without changing much of the story or changing much of the time needed, and they simply failed to do that. So, yeah, and there we go. This has been quite a long review, actually, much more longer than I normally do for Fairy Gone, but yeah, that's about it. And well, looking forward. I just want to know how they're. I'm dying to know how exactly they're going to end this kind of story with all these different parties, right? And when we finally get through this entire mystery as to the fairies, as to Black Fairy Tomb, yada yada yada. So, anyways, I'll see you guys next week. Until then, bye bye.